And just like that, y'all, we are back. Callings and Careers is back. What's up, everybody? It's so good to have every single one of you all with us today. I am Christopher J. Harris. This is my amazing co-host, Miss Jessica Canty, the queen of alliteration and syntax. How about that? Jessica, what's
I'm
up?
about to put that on my resume. I'm about to put that on my resume. That's going to be my heading, the queen of alliteration and syntax. I'm taking it. I'm claiming it. I love it. Absolutely.
Yes.
Mhm.
Uh, we got actually. So if we're gonna follow this all the way through, I need two more A's. So I need
Okay.
alliteration,
Uh-huh.
awesomeness, and I don't know. Give me another A. You got to give me another A.
Amazing. Alliteration, awesomeness, and amazing. I'll go with it. I'll go with that one.
Yeah, my trainer, I think has already stolen the word awesome. So you have to fight him for that.
Okay. Okay. I'll pick
He,
a new
he
word
calls
then.
he, he calls himself Mr. Awesome, and he calls his dog Mr. Possum. Go figure.
Now that's funny. That's funny.
Yeah, that tells
Mhm.
you everything you need to know about my trainer and the ego that goes along with it. No, he's a good guy. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. Yeah. So how you been, Jessica? Since our last part one of the conversation, we're going to continue today.
Oh, absolutely. Life has been great. And I don't know about you all, but if you watch our last episode, and we were talking about personality assessments, I think I've been more aware of my quirks and my ticks and the spaces I want to expand my zone of genius in the areas that I'm like, you know what? That's a struggle. I might be on a struggle bus with that one. But life is good because I'm aware and I'm making those observations and plans to address them.
That's good. That's so good. That's so good. So we have been at this now for a couple years. This being callings and careers, and our goal, our commitment is to have Christ-centered career coaching conversations. Jessica is a counselor, a coach, a therapist, all those things. Jessica, tell everybody really fast about where they can find you and connect with you at.
Well, hey there. I'm Jessica Canty. I am your life and career strategist. I love helping melanin and millennial moms who want high achieving careers. Now, if you are one of those women who want a high achieving career and you want to do so with some support, you can head over to jessicacanty.com. But guess what? You can email me directly to jessicacanty@jessicacanty.com so we can get a conversation going. I want you to get the job and career you deserve and to feel happy about that.
That's good. That's so good. And I am Christopher J. Harris, and you can find me there at ChristopherJHarris.com on social media, at CJ Harris ONE on all platforms. And our commitment is to help people find their goal, find their commitment to live out their faith and flourish in every single aspect of their lives. And one of the ways that we do that also is with diversechurchjobs.com, where we specifically are helping people in ministry find incredible ministry opportunities across the country. And so we're thankful that you guys are here. And as I mentioned, Calling and Careers is our effort to add our voice to the conversation of how you can discover your calling and then develop in your career. And we've been having some amazing discussions over the last several years that have helped people, that have inspired people, that have challenged people, and all those kinds of things. And so today is actually a part two of our discussion around career assessments and personality tests and that kind of thing. So Jessica, what other? I know you mentioned very briefly your own personal response, your own personal time of
Mhm.
reflection from the last session. What else have you been thinking about, or what immediate things come to mind from the last discussion that stand out to you that maybe serves as a bridge for where we're going today?
One of the things that I noticed when we were talking about the assessment is I think that we did a really great job, and anyone who follows up with any of the assessments we mentioned, of giving a holistic view of a person. a holistic view of a person. And so, we kind of joked about your trainer, but a trainer would go in and look at you holistically. They're not going to just assess, how fast you can run or how deep you can stretch. They want to see all the different facets of your physical capabilities. And so what really stuck out to me is the beauty of us finding different assessments for both the spiritual and the professional. And we're going to take that a little bit further today about the different facets. So good. You can sit there and, marinate on just one assessment for a little bit and come back and focus on the next thing. So it doesn't have to overwhelm, but it's definitely going to give you a clear picture. We're not going to, it's rigorous and balanced to look at you as a total package.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's so good. So I think one of the things that may be good for us to do again is to kind of talk about just a few of the benefits with regards to taking the personality assessments, what that looks like, and why those are important. Because a lot of people may not even know, like, why is it important, and what are the benefits of us, talking about and taking, some of these personality assessments. So first of all, as you sort of alluded to, it really makes us more self-aware, self-intelligent, or connects the dots to our past, our present, and what our future actually may be. So I think that's really important. Secondly, it gives us a framework for how we improve, a framework for saying, here's some of the gaps that you've got going on in your own life, and here's some ways that you can kind of improve. So it gives you, I guess a good way to say it is it gives you your own personal development plan that you kind of look at and navigate. The third one I'll deal with, and then I'll pull back for a moment and let you kind of jump in on these, is you become more attentive and aware really of the unique differences of other people. So a lot of times when we see people who are different, a way to maybe say that is we demonize what's different, right? We immediately say that I'm right, I'm good, they're wrong, they're bad, when in fact, that may not be the case at all. We may just be different and have to figure out unique ways and creative ways to actually get along with each other in order to make the entire team better.
Absolutely. And that's one of the assessments that we're going to talk about a little bit later, just how to figure out where we may be operating in the fact that we are the right one and there is someone else is wrong, where we're doing that splitting, which is a clinical concept that everything has to be all right or all wrong, all white, all black, whatever those two polar opposites are. So it helps you to do that, but also help you to find your tribe. So you're able to find people who are common to you. And I know we didn't hit on this last time, but I definitely want to mention here too. You made me kind of chuckle when you were giving me my A's and I said I was going to put on my resume, but this is great information to put on your resume. And it's a great way to use in interviews and to leverage for that salary conversation or that promotion and raise conversation, because you know, and you won't have to contend with imposter syndrome because you've gotten these assessments on exactly who you are.
Yeah. Let's take a moment really fast, Jessica. Let's unpack that for just a moment, that phrase imposter syndrome. And one of the things that I think may be cool for us to talk about is, how does a person observe and learn and maybe even be mentored from a distance from other people while at the same time becoming authentic to themselves?
Well, one, imposter syndrome is often where it's like it's a feeling that you're going to be found out. Like someone's going to figure out, I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know what I'm doing. Someone's going to find out that resume writer embellished a few things. And it often shows up in women and in people of color because they have to work twice as hard to get some positions as their counterparts that are not of the same gender or ethnic background. But it's going to be particularly challenging to do that from a distance without knowing what you're good at. And so I do think, to your point about, making sure that we're close enough to it to understand it, but getting the guidance on how to fine tune it and how to tailor it, how not to walk with, I think the last time we spoke, how not to walk around with it as if, well, that's just who I am, and not leaving space for that growth and opportunity. So it's sort of a spectrum, that imposter syndrome, I don't know what I'm doing, or I know what I'm doing, can't nobody tell me nothing. You got to be right in the center of it.
Yeah, that's so good. And I think this notion of imposter syndrome, it's important because we have to learn how to be our authentic selves as we live our work out. But I think here's a major point. being authentic doesn't mean you don't need to adjust certain elements of your authenticity to the environment that you're in, right? Because
Absolutely.
I've seen people say, well, you just got to accept me for who I am. And when you engage with them, they're just kind of rough around the edges, or there's still some maturation that needs to take place, or there's still some, a learning curve in certain areas that may be blind spots. So it's not just a matter of you just need to accept me for who I am. It's also you becoming more self-aware and having a sober self-assessment enough to say, hey, what is it like to experience or to be on the other side of experiencing me?
That's good stuff. That's good stuff. Because authentic people still brush their teeth. So yes, we authentically have morning breath, but there's some spaces that we got to take care of before we interact with other people, right? So you can be authentic as you want to, but you want to use some mouthwash in the morning. That makes sure your people are able to experience you in a comfortable way, right? Yeah, I think so.
I wish we were right there. We might have been in church just then. I tell you, touch your neighbor and say, use some mouthwash.
They would have found out which neighbor needed to use it too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I told our volunteers at our church one time, Jessica, I said, never reject the mint. If somebody comes by and offers you a mint, even if you don't think you need it, always say thank you. Accept the mint and say thank you.
So it's a good rule of thumb. Absolutely. It's a good rule of thumb.
Yeah. So we talked about the benefits being that you become more self-aware. It provides a framework for how you improve goal setting, vision alignment. Your activities lines up with the mission and vision for your life. You become more aware of the differences of others. But I think there's two others that we probably want to highlight really quickly in terms of the benefits of having or taking these personality assessments. And that is one other one is that you are able to then connect with like-minded people. You can find your tribe and be in community with others that are similarly wired or similarly engaged. It's almost like, somebody told me one time that extroverts always find each other at the parties. Those folks that may be more compassionate. They're wired for empathy, things of that nature. They quickly or more readily identify with others that have a lot of empathy or have a lot of compassion, that kind of thing. So it's easy for us to kind of gravitate towards those that we are like. And oftentimes that helps to refresh you or give you a lens or a perspective to affirm that maybe you're not crazy for how you operate or how you see things or how you think about things as you navigate this. And then I think the last benefit is that when employers see that you've taken the time to at least invest in yourself enough to learn about yourself, it gives them a better understanding of who you are as a candidate, but also lets them know that you're serious about being the best person possible that you're bringing to the job.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So let's see. So last part one, we talked about the shape profile, because again, we're unapologetic about our faith. So as employees or employers working in the workspace who happen to also be people of faith, we're bringing our full selves to our job. So our spiritual gifts, our heart's passions, our attitude, personality, unique experiences, that's our shape, are all brought to the discussion. So we talked about shape profile. We talked about true motivate. We talked about the Clifton Strength Finders. You unpacked that one quite a bit. We talked about the 16 personality factors. We talked about 7 primal questions, and we talked about Myers-Briggs as potential ones that we can accept. So let's jump into some ones for today. Let's talk about emotional intelligence, Jessica. Let's talk about some of those assessments for emotional intelligence. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, there's whole collegiate courses on what emotional intelligence is. People who are making 6 figures are still sitting in classes to try to master what does this emotional intelligence mean. Essentially, emotional intelligence is thinking about checking yourself and checking the environment. How is my presence impacting the environment, and how is the environment impacting my presence or impacting my personality? It's saying that I can't blame it all on my coworkers. I can't blame it all on the environment or the culture of the office, but Did I bring an attitude to the workspace today? Did I bring a chip on my shoulder to the workspace today? And vice versa. Is that environment breeding toxicity? Are you able to feel healthy in that environment? So emotional intelligence, a little bit different than emotional maturity, but emotional intelligence says, can I read the room? Am I cognizant when my presence is impacting the room? Am I cognizant that it does? Even as introverts, our energy coming into that space or how we approach things definitely still impacts the environment. So, in a nutshell, checking yourself and checking the environment to see the relationship between the two.
Yeah. Is it possible to be successful in today's workplace and you not have high emotional intelligence? Is it possible?
It's possible to sustain. I wouldn't say successful. There's plenty of people who work right now who are in government positions that found their little niche and their little hole, and because of union, they can't get let go. So they're sustained. But in terms of success, I would say no, absolutely not. So do you want sustainability or do you want success? That's the question you have to ask yourself.
Yeah. What's really powerful, let's talk about this for a second. I think one of the things that's really powerful about this is there's this book that I read, Jessica, a couple years back that's titled People Skills for Christians. And yes, I mean, really, really powerful book. This guy who was is an engineer, so he's very logical in his thinking, realized that there are some areas of growth that he had over a period of time as a Christian that he needed to develop in. And prior to that, sort of that epiphany, he had been blaming any relational conflicts on the devil. And he was like, this ain't the devil, this is me. So let's talk about that for a moment. In what ways have we been misguided in our approach in terms of relational engagement that we've blamed on the devil that may in fact be us?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Not only it may be a character adjustment we need to do. It may also be that we're holding them to a standard that's only an internal standard for us, or this is the way our church does it. This is the way I've interpreted the Bible. So easily anybody can be the devil. Anybody, well, that's the devil. That person comes to work 5 minutes late every morning, but you don't know they picked up coffee for the office. So you have to be very careful that anything is the devil that doesn't live up to your standards, or that just rubs you the wrong way. Like, do they have to cough that loud? That's the devil. That's sickness and disease coming in the workspace. No, it's cold and flu season. So you do have to slow down and ask yourself, is it because they just don't measure up to my standard? That's not how I think a lady should behave. How I think a gentleman should behave. Someone in authority shouldn't talk to me like that. And, or this is one, I'm anointed. They can't talk to me in that way. Yes, they can. They can fine tune your anointment. So your anointing and your appointments, the anointing and appointment situation. So I think that's what it is too. And the assessments help you to kind of tease out, is that my standard showing up, or is this, a little area that they're showing, oh, I can make some adjustments in that space.
No, that's good. That's so good. And for me, Jessica, there was a point too where I thought that to acknowledge an area of growth was a blanket that I was a bad person, which is a destructive soundtrack in your life, right? Like, you can be a good person and still have blind spots or have areas. It's not a zero-sum reality. So working on one area of your life should not discount the other good things that you are doing well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, it's a clinical concept that I often see with my clients, that we have a tendency to split things as all good and all bad. And I mean, I think sometimes interviewers have made us that way too, because they'll say, what are your weaknesses and what are your strengths? So we see them as two different things, versus it's a strength that can help me to fine tune that weakness. So it is quite presented to us in that way. But the work is to understand how to present it in a way that I know this is a space that I can grow in, and the company can grow along with me.
Yeah, I actually think we've done some live conversations about interviewing skills. I actually think that is a interview question that, although I hate that question, everybody needs to be prepared to answer it if you're going through the interview process, right? That's one of those standard ones that should not trip you up when you're going through the interview process. So, all right, so that's emotional intelligence. That's emotional intelligence. Let's talk about the Enneagram for a little bit, because this one um, is it's not a new personality assessment, but it's caught a lot of steam and a lot of notoriety over the last just few years. And in the church space, it's created some conflict and some pushback in terms
Mhm.
of whether or not we should be doing the Enneagram or not. So give us some thoughts, Jessica, about the Enneagram.
Absolutely. I mean, it's understandable. We do want to be very careful in identifying what's secular, what is the flesh, and what is of the world. But I think sometimes as a body of Christ, we are so cautious that we want to make sure. Oh, that sounds a little bit too much like horoscopes, and that's not what it is. It's saying let's slow down and see. Okay, maybe the issue with the ministry is not the ministry head, but this isn't the right fit for you. Maybe
Mm,
the issue with that particular group of people is not the group of people. Maybe you're struggling and you're feeling burned out and overwhelmed, and we could protect you if we knew, okay, this is what the Lord has anointed you with. And one of those we can do that is through a scientific assessment tool. So a
mm,
lot of times people, especially in the body of Christ, we want to be very careful about edging over to anything that sounds like manifestation or horoscopes. But that's not what this is. This is a scientific based assessment that says, here are some things you want to consider as your
mm.
strong suits. Here are some spaces you're going to struggle in. Do you want to get some support or pay somebody or do something different because you're going to struggle in it? And that's essentially what the Enneagram is. It's not about, what day you were born and what year you were born, but really, how do we make sure that we're using your skill set to the best of our ability?
That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. Um, yeah. So I think it's worth you doing some research on, seeing the history behind the test, the assessment. Rather, I'm saying test. Seeing the the history, not just the history of it, but the science behind it, and then if it's an assessment that you're not comfortable engaging with, well, guess what? Just say that. Say, like, I'm not comfortable at this point engaging in the Enneagram and, those kinds of things. Now, you got to recognize that you should not turn your preference into doctrine and then demean and demote and
Mhm.
demonize those that are engaged or engaging in the Enneagram. Because in either case, the Bible is not saying to us, you're going to hell or you are committing a sin if you do or you do not participate in Enneagram. It is simply a matter of preference and comfortability in terms of how you engage them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, it's just one facet of getting to know yourself. And maybe that's
Yeah.
what this going to tell you. It's like that you are really a rule follower, that you tend to be rigid, and you tend, I mean, that's probably what it's telling you, and it might be uncomfortable. And so people pleasing is not a part of your language. So of course, when you see results like that, or when you see tests like any of the tests that we mentioned before, you may be uncomfortable, and it's a way for you to adjust your approach and recognize, like you said earlier, how might other people be experiencing me.
That's so good. So good. So, Jessica, I know you have two more assessments. I'd love to let's walk through those assessments, and then let's talk a little bit about maybe some overarching questions that people can ask themselves as they're engaging in a journey of self-awareness.
Absolutely. So, one of the assessments that you want to look at, especially in this space of a lot of conversation around diversity, equity, and inclusion, is to check your bias. We kind of alluded to that at the top of our conversation. But if you're breathing, you have a bias. If you're breathing, you have a bias. And we're not aware of our biases. Most of our biases are covert, they're not overt. And sometimes we have to have something to help us to illuminate those spaces that are our blind spots. You might be
Mhm.
biased towards people in your generation. You may be biased to a particular ethnic background. You may be biased to a particular even body shape. And if you're not certain of what that bias is, you might be showing up in how you judge your boss. It might be showing up in how you judge people in your meeting. It might be showing up in even how you judge whether or not a company is good for you. And so Harvard put together an assessment that actually allows you to look at yourself from multiple, I think it's about 12 assessments you can pick from,
Mhm.
completely free. And I think it could take about 5 to 10 minutes to complete. And it gives you some results. And I'm telling you, every time I teach a class around diversity, equity, and inclusion, people are surprised. I see it over and over again about biases towards complexions. And that's something that
Mhm.
people are uncomfortable with. That even African
Hairstyle,
Americans, which both of people who are surprised by it, are like, say again.
hairstyles.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And so when we have those biases and blind spots, it's a natural way for our brains to make the world more safe. But where we have to break that down is, are we acting in prejudice? Are we acting in
Mm.
prejudice? So this is especially true for those who are HR representatives or who want to hire people. You might be acting in a bias because you saw a certain zip code, because you saw a
Yeah.
certain sounding name, and you assumed something was going to go with that, or you saw a certain level of education. I remember I worked for a company and they told me that they were not, this is back when business cards were a thing, but they told me they were not going to give me a business card because I had a master's degree. And they said people with master's degree typically don't last here, but a couple of months. So you have to wait till 90 days to get a business
Mm.
to get business cards. Was it true? Absolutely. I didn't stay very long, but I realized this was a part of their policy, that they were biased towards a certain level of education. So I highly encourage you to have, set up a space where you can feel comfortable doing it, because there might be some ouch moments. Head on over and complete that assessment and talk about it. One of the ways that you can tell that your bias flourishes is if you look at your five
Mm.
major connections and they all look like you are likely operating in a
Mhm.
bias. So if you look outside, your window, you see most people are the same race, same financial space, same, just lifestyle
Yeah.
at church, at work, and all these different things, then it might be. Oh, the dental bias is done by Harvard, and I'm gonna grab the link to make sure we can drop it down in the notes.
Yeah.
But I think it's called the bias assessment, and I'll grab it to make sure I'm quoting it correctly. I just get excited about what it provides, but I want to make sure I give you the direct title of it. But Harvard does that bias assessment.
That's good. A part of what you're dealing with and addressing is cultural intelligence, right? And that is what we're dealing with. Those biases that impact or affect how we engage in the workplace and with people that are different than us. And what's interesting is a lot of people will, and I love how you framed this right at the beginning. You said if you're breathing, you have a bias, because a lot of people would immediately push back and say, "Well, I don't have any biases. I got a white friend, or I got a female friend, or I got a friend." And we start trying to leverage this as though we don't have biases without just like actually acknowledging that it's, in some cases, a part of the goal and the growth in our lives, that sober self-assessment, is to acknowledge you do have a bias. Like, I'm gonna be honest, Jessica. I realized a couple years ago that I side eye people who give me bad food recommendations. Like I side eye them because I'm just like, if you give me bad food recommendations, I don't even know if you can be trusted. I don't
Your
know if you can
stomach is
be
telling me
trusted.
something different.
Yeah. Like, man, my
Mhm.
prophetic gifts start kicking in. I start reading other pieces of their life and stuff. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. So seriously though, yeah, we all have a bias. And it's important for
Mhm.
us to go ahead and acknowledge that. And obviously, when you are in a seat of power or influence, it is even more critical and more important to recognize those biases, because that power that you hold will impact the people that you're leading based on the bias that you have. So if you view a person that has tattoos, too many tattoos, as
Mhm.
uneducated, illiterate, or uninformed, you may miss the fact that this person, in fact, may be a heart surgeon. They just so happen to love tattoos, right? Or they may be a brain surgeon. They just so happen to love tattoos. So
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
that's kind of a silly example, but it's true, right? Certain people have biases for certain things.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I mean, and especially what I see in the workspace is the generational bias. bias, because
Yeah.
now increasingly the workspaces we're talking about careers is a multi-generational workforce. So even Gen Z, which is not the it's the second to last generation, now Gen Alpha is on the scene, but for the most part Gen Z is the youngest generation that's in the workspace. And so that means you're working with at least three to four different types of generations in your workspace. And if you can't
Yeah.
check your biases, everything that other generation do is going to get on your nerves. So protect yourself from headaches and backaches, and acknowledge your biases. And so that assessment is the Harvard Implicit Bias Assessment, but you may also see it as the Harvard Implicit Association Test. Either one you complete, and that will help you to understand. Wait a minute, it's not them. It's you. You have an affinity bias to something that looks like you. There's different types of biases, but in that one, it will definitely tell you the actual physical appearance of a thing, which you have a bias towards.
Yeah. That's so good. That's so good.
Mhm.
I'm going to pull this quote up while you get ready to talk about the second one
Mhm,
really
mhm,
fast,
mhm.
because um, Dr. Jamar Tisby said something a few weeks ago, Jessica, that even about the biases that I think are really, it was really powerful. I want to quote him. Um, Yeah, here it is. Here's what he says about biases and how it impacts us in our work and organizations, Jessica. He says, this is Dr. Jamar Tisby. He says, when it comes to racial justice, most organizations move only as quickly as the most fragile white person in their midst.
Mm. Mic drop.
Listen, listen, that's a grenade. That is a grenade.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
in some ways, our organizations do a disservice if we don't at least engage in healthy dialogue, healthy discussions about our biases and how they impact the work that we do. What's the second one that you had? You talked about the Harvard Implicit Bias Assessment. What's the second
Absolutely.
personality assessment?
Mhm, 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 mhm. Now, to your point, to your last point, I would also say if you are in leadership, you want to ask your team to complete the language of appreciation in the workspace so that you can start to
Mm,
identify how you are biased towards any particular language of appreciation. That's something you can check out as another assessment. That's not the second one I was thinking about, but to your point, that's something leadership and management can start to do is, are we biased to one type of way to show appreciation? Do we think giving our employees pizza is going to convey that we appreciate them? That's another assessment you could complete. Now, the last assessment is looking at your leadership profile inventory and your communication. I'm going to give you
mm,
the exact title of it, but what I want you to know before I even give it to you is that it's going to identify your problem solving techniques,
mm,
but also how you communicate and convey. It has four different categories of how we convey things. Are you an internal processor that likes to connect with people? Are you somebody who's like, let me just jump in and solve the problem? We'll figure it out as we go along. We'll build the plane as we go along. But they have four different communication styles that really impact the way that we work in the world. And I'm just going to be transparent. I'm going to tell you mine because I want you to be able to know that in fact that all of us have a specific communication style. So for me, it's I am consistently concerned. I can be disciplined. I can be logical, and these are things that are your dominant styles. It would definitely put you into a category. It's about 20 questions that will ask you situation based questions. In this situation, are you more concerned? Are you more focused? Do you feel like you're non-confrontational? Do you think you're productive? And it will give you
mm,
an answer that will tell you, okay, this is your dominant style. And you may notice that there may be some overlap, but it's important because when you're communicating, you may be thinking you're sending a certain type of message, but in fact, you're not. Like if you are like me, I may want to explain a point, but if someone else hearing it, they might think, oh, she's a know it all, or I didn't need to know that part. So you have to be very careful about that. But I really like this particular assessment because it gives you some insight around that.
that's so good. That is so good. That is so good. So,
Mhm.
and the name of that last one again is what again?
I want to make sure I give you the direct website address because I know it gives you the it gives you your specific dominant style, but I don't want to mess up the title. It's your leadership profile inventory, the leadership profile inventory. And so this is going to tell you exactly how you approach a particular challenge. What are the things you consider when you're working with other people?
That's so good. That's so good. That's so good. So between today and then part one, we've essentially provided you with about 10 personality assessments that covers everything from how you work with others, putting a mirror up to yourself, your biases, your team impact, team approach. Patrick Lencioni just came out with another book called I think it's called Collective Genius or something like that. So there's lots and lots of options. The goal, a part of what we're trying to convey to you, and we want this to be practical, but you should be learning more about yourself as you navigate your career journey. That's the goal, right? And so we want to sort of convey that and get that to you. For the balance of our time, I want to spend just a few minutes, Jessica, if we can, maybe walking through some of these very basic career development questions that people can navigate in their journey. And I think this will be really, really good for us to kind of look at it and talk through it, think through. So here's the first one. Tell us what inspires you. You should be the question. I'm giving them to you in a question format, but you should be able to answer them as though you're being asked this like in an interview. So what inspires you? What gets you out of bed in the morning? Right? What inspires you? What gets you out of bed in the morning? Simon Sinek has a book titled Start With Why, and that's a powerful principle for your own life. Remember your why as you navigate your day-to-day affairs and engage in the work around you. Here's question number two. Question number two is tell us about your vision for your life or for your career. A lot of people don't even have a vision. They're just sort of, responding to the next crises or responding emotionally to things as they happen. Question number three. What aspects of your current role, do you love? What aspects do you struggle with? Again, this suggests that you spent some time reflecting, that you know yourself well enough to know that, here is a part of the job that's not really a favorite of mine. Here's a part of the job that is a favorite of mine. Now, here's why this is also important. This is also important, y'all, because down the road, as you start accepting or when you might accept other opportunities or other offers, you can have an honest discussion with them about saying, I'm really good at this and I really like this, but these things, I'd love if we could pass those on to somebody else that's more excited about those things or more equipped to handle those things. Reaction, Jessica, to that?
Absolutely. I think it's important to know our areas of growth. And sometimes, especially in this it is a tough job market, people are less likely to want to convey what they need to work on because they're afraid it's going to disqualify them. When in reality, all of these career development questions, they really want to know your character because their skill set, they already know. It's on your resume. They've already known that they may give you a skills test. They want to know your character. And a character that's not improving is atrophying. So all you're doing is telling them this is the plan that I would like to improve. And I know that when I improve, that means the company's going to get better. It's not going to be a waste of their investment. It's not going to be a waste of their time to invest in the areas I want to grow in.
So good. So that's the first three questions. Question number 4 is tell us about a time where you use your strength to achieve a positive outcome. So if these are strengths that you have, you should have evidence. Now, if you have been in a particular career for 10 years, let's just say 10 years, and you can't think of one story where you've used your strengths to develop an outcome, that means either A, you've not been doing the work, B, you've been doing the work alone, or C, you're really not that in tune with yourself and others to be able to even reflect upon how you've had to engage in what you're good at to develop a positive outcome for you or for the company or for the fellow teammates or employees that are involved. So that's really significant, right? Here's question number 5, and then I'll pause and let Jessica jump in again. Are there any healthy habits that you want to build into your work life? Are there any healthy habits that you want to build into your work life? If you have none, then that's a problem, because that means you're not developing healthy habits as a lifestyle that's not just contingent upon a certain season of life, but in fact for all of your life. Jessica?
Absolutely. So, question number 4, to your point, a lot of times people are not recording their innovations or what they're doing. They're just going about the monotony of Monday to Friday. And so that, I mean, I see it over and over again with my career coaching clients. It's why I created a tool that I use with them, which is they daily record what they're doing. Daily record. Now, I'm not talking about minute by minute, but what's the highlight reel of your day? And then you do a weekly highlight reel and one monthly highlight reel. So by the time you get to that promotion conversation, by the time you get to the interview conversation, you have it. And a lot of times people are waiting for their boss to say, this is how you're awesome. That's not their job. The job is to see if you're doing your job and to pay you accordingly. So you have to have some way to capture how you're working and working hard. This is especially for women because we often downplay our skill set, but you really want to make sure that you're capturing all the problem solving skills. And the last one that you mentioned, a lot of companies are now thinking about health and wellness benefits. And so we're asking them, do we get to telework? Do you give some gym discounts? Do you health insurance? But they want to know, hey, we kicking in those investments. What are you doing with your healthy lifestyle? How are you going to contribute? How are you going to make a good use of that investment that they've created for you?
That's so good. So good. So let me ask a question though, Jessica, because you said something that was interesting, and I'm reflecting that I want to make sure that this is not a blind spot for me. Okay. But you mentioned that women have to be more intentional than men about acknowledging their points of achievement. Mm-hmm. Say more about that. That's new information for me even.
Absolutely. Well, I can get on my soapbox about this because that's my therapy brain coming in, but how we're reared, how society rears us, a lot of times is that it's braggadocious for a woman to talk about herself. Whereas boys and men are more inclined to say, this is what I did this weekend. And I can tell you about my golf game. I can tell you about my basketball game, but we're typically not socialized to talk about what we do well. And so it's just the normal thing that we do, especially for African-American women. We are typically said you just got to grind it out, be that strong Black woman. So we often downplay the fact that it took a lot for us to get to work today. We did 20 things before we even left the front door of our home. And so it's a little bit about the rearing situation. I do see some of my male clients still needing support in preparing for interviews, but over and over again with women, if I tell them, no, tell me what you did, and I tell them, no, this is what I heard, I can come up with 10 things they've done, and they said they only did 2 things. So if you are doing that, I want you to break that down. Here's an exercise to see if you are, in fact, one of those people. Write down the steps in making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. If you only come up with take 2 pieces of bread and some peanut butter and some jelly, you need to work on how to create the narrative about your skill set, because it took so much more to make that peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I'm going to leave it there. Definitely comment below. Tell me what it came up for you. But there's so much more skills rather than just taking 2 pieces of bread and some peanut butter and jelly and making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
I'm over here rolling, y'all. Jessica just schooled y'all by using an illustration and a metaphor from a peanut butter and a jelly sandwich. You hear me? Listen to me.
Maybe that should be an interview question. So the next time I hire somebody, I'm going to tell them, tell me how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I'm telling you can tell a whole lot by a person by their description of how to do that. Absolutely.
Well, first I had to make my grocery list and add the right peanut butter and the right jelly to my grocery list. When I got to the store, they were out of the preferred jelly, so I had to decide which jelly would I be willing to adjust to. So then I got that jelly, but then I had to make sure that it was the jelly and the peanut butter that was in the plastic container and not the glass, because having kids at home, I've already experienced what it's like for the glass to break and then us have to clean up this glass off the floor. So I had to make sure it was the plastic containers. When I got them home, some people decide that they put their jelly in the refrigerator. At the Harris household, we don't. So I had to go to the pantry, get our peanut butter, get our jelly. I toasted my bread a little bit, and it had to be wheat bread, not white bread. Toasted my bread just a little bit, not a lot, because if you toast it too much, now it's on the level of like a grilled cheese and not a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? And so that's why they have crustables, because it's got to be crusted just a little bit. So then I get the right knife, I don't use the same knife for the peanut butter that I use for the jelly, because then the jelly is going to get inside the peanut butter, or vice versa. So I have to have two knives to make sure that I don't mix and match these things together and co-contaminate my utensils. So then I put the jelly on one side, put the peanut butter on the other side, then I take it. I don't press it down because nobody wants a smashed sandwich. I then cut it at a diagonal to make sure I have my peanut butter sandwich triangles, peanut butter and jelly sandwich triangles. I then make sure I have napkins, and then I have water, because it's probably likely that I don't want another sweet thing that I'm drinking along with the sweet sandwich that I'm eating. Now I can enjoy my peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Oh, absolutely. I heard problem solving, resource management, innovation, listening to the client's wants and desires, thinking about the future, what's going to happen in their bodies and minds. Here's something that you forgot, though. You didn't mention scheduling the time. How did you get the resources to even pay for the peanut butter and the jelly? Don't sell yourself short. You had to do some budgeting to make sure you had the money for that. You had to make sure you went to the right store that had the right supplies. So come on now, listen, we just did it for you. So all you got to do is now put that on your resume. Pull out those keywords to sell yourself. I'm telling you, now we're going to have a peanut butter and jelly business. Now we're capitalizing in that. What type of peanut butter what type of jelly you want, all of those things. But it's a simple exercise, and we're making light of it. But you see how many steps it was. And if you were the person that was like, Jessica, it's a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, it's simple, you probably downplay your skills. And it's time to get some support to stop doing that.
So the question is, would I have been hired? Right? That's the question that people, as you're listening to this, would I have been hired? Well, not only because I like, you hit something that I thought is powerful. Because also a part of interviewing, and we keep touching on some of these aspects of interviewing. We've done several sessions before on that. They can go back and listen to those. But it's also, it's learning how to articulate a story in a coherent way. Absolutely. That the people that are listening can follow what you're saying, right? Because now if your thoughts are disjointed, now it's like, okay, what are you talking about? I can't process what you're saying in a meeting, those kinds of things. That's going to come up and tell that. So let me say this. If in fact I have to interview you at any point past the recording of this session, just know the peanut butter and jelly question is coming up. That's all I'm going to say.
You've been warned. You now know how to prepare for it. You got a script. So go back and hit the replay and practice with a friend. Make sure you rewatch it with the friend, an accountability partner.
Just know, in any context, if I'm involved in your hiring process, you are going to be asked the peanut butter and jelly question. Do you hear me? Jessica, that was gold.
Absolutely.
That was gold, man. Come on. That's what I'm talking about. That's so good. All right, we got four more things, four more things, questions that are great career development questions. These are things that you should be learning from your assessments. Number 6 is, describe your perfect working day. What would that perfect working day look like? What's an ideal working day look like for you? Question number 7 is, tell us about your fears. What fears do you have? Question number 8 is, what do you value most about your job? What do you appreciate most about your job? Question number 9 is, what goals are you currently working towards? And then number 10 is, how would your work colleagues describe you? Let me give those to you again really fast, and then Jessica, I'll let you jump in here. So question number 6 is, describe your perfect working day. What would that day look like? Question number 7 is, tell us about your fears. Question number 8 is, what do you value most about your job? Question number 9, what goals are you currently working towards? And then question number 10 is, how would your work colleagues describe you? So these are 10 career development questions that, if you've taken personality assessments, career assessments, Jessica mentioned implicit bias assessment and a communication assessment. In other words, if you are on the journey of improving yourself and becoming more self-aware, you should, in essence, be able to answer those 10 questions with some ease. Talk to us, Jessica. What's your reaction to some of those, or anything else you were thinking about?
Absolutely. So, like you said, the assessments we mentioned will help you easily answer that. You may need to have someone help you craft it in a way that can be succinct and easy to deliver, because it is a lot of information you're gonna get from those assessments. So, you definitely want to get some advice around how to make that conversational. Because what we just gave you is probably at least 50 pages worth of assessment. If you combine all of them, and so how do I synthesize that? And that last question, it really hit me between the eyes, because we were just talking about emotional intelligence. If you're not paying attention to how you're impacting the environment, you have no clue how to answer that question.
Right.
And there's even assessments now that you can, I think it's like the 360, where supervisors can ask their team how they are being seen or experienced. But you can take those 360 questions and ask your coworkers and colleagues. It's scary, but it's powerful information to get as well.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. So good. Let me just really quickly give a quick life hack to these personality assessments, because I have been in places and spaces where I've had to receive career information from people. So resumes, cover letters, even personality assessments that they've seen. If you're in the seat of a candidate, let me just say that the hiring team, the hiring manager, the consultant, whoever, generally does not want to receive 30 different attachments or links from you with all of these things. So figure out a way to organize this content so that you don't have to send 30 attachments. In some cases, it could be that while you may have all the personality assessments in individual PDFs, you may also have one file where all of them are one PDF. So you invest $9 and getting the PDF software that you can combine multiple PDFs together. It could be where you set them all up on a website where you've got a back page, a private page, where there's a private link that only certain people have that you can provide them access to, and you can pull it up. There are platforms like SlideShare. There's another one. I'm drawing a blank on the other one, but there's platforms like SlideShare that you can actually load PDFs on there, and then people can go in and assess those things without having to download it and that kind of thing. The other thing that you can do is, this is really easy, either Dropbox or Box, so Dropbox.com or Box.com, or even a Google folder that has all of these things in it, that you then share just that one link to the entire folder. Now, make sure that the folder is set not to private, so that the people have to then give you or request access from you for it. Make sure it's set to something like anybody with the link can access the documents or whatever. But do that in a way so that you can make it easy for the person that's considering hiring you. If a hiring manager or a consultant has to work hard to get the information, they're probably going to move on to the next person. So just keep that in mind. Jessica, anything you want to add to that at all?
If they have to work hard, you won't be working hard for them. Just being in HR, I know. Listen, 7 seconds. I'm moving on to the next candidate. I have it's especially in this job market. There's plenty of people who want this position. So I'm not gonna work hard to let you work hard. You got to do
Yeah.
the front work as well. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm still
And
Jessica.
if you do need some support,
No, go ahead.
you can always hire a copywriter as well to synthesize this information for you. So if you are creating that landing page and you're not sure what to put on it, copywriters can be cost-effective ways to create that landing page in a way that that allows you to shine your best. That's definitely giving you that brand kit, if you will, to present to potential employers.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think I'm really surprised even today at the number of people that still submit documents to me like as a Word document. Just 2 weeks ago, we're working to hire a particular candidate for this organization. The person sent me like 4 Word documents. I opened the first one, and the formatting was all off. The fonts were just jacked up. I picked up the phone and called them and said, I am not accepting this on their behalf. Resend all this stuff to me as a PDF, and you got 2 hours to get it done. If not, we're gonna move on. Right now, I didn't say it in those exact phrases, but essentially I let them know this is time sensitive and you should have known better. So just gotta keep those kinds of things in mind. Jessica, any closing comments, any closing remarks about all of this? This has been so good. This has been so good.
Yeah. This is it's literally a collegiate course. So go back and watch part 1 and part two. And remember, you can do this. You can do it. And we're giving you the tools to be successful and confident that you can. Go out there and get the job of your dreams. Absolutely.
So good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, this has been Callings and Careers. And this is Jessica Canty, my co-host. I am Christopher Harris, and we are honored to always have all of you to tune in together. You can find Jessica right there. Her website is there listed, and she's at Jessica Canty on all platforms. That's my website right there, ChristopherJHarris.com, and you can find me on all platforms at CJHarrisONE. Our commitment in Callings and Careers is to help you discover your calling and then develop in your career. And so we have Christ-centered career coaching conversations right here a few times a month, and it's our honor. Make sure you're following us on social media. Make sure you're connecting with us on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, all those platforms. And that way you'll be alerted to every single time we go live to engage in these discussions. We'll see y'all the next time. Thank y'all. Peace.